Gonzaga's quest to recruit the best players at each position in the 2026 class continues with a big-time guard set to visit Spokane next month.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Happy Tuesday, and welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Folks, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet is a win. Well, I hope you all had a safe, happy Memorial Day weekend. We're coming to you a little bit later than usual this week. Chet Holmgren led Oklahoma City to a crucial victory in the Western Conference Finals. Andrew Nembhard and the Pacers are hanging on after a loss in Game 3 to the New York Knicks. We'll talk about that to close out the show, plus an overall look at Gonzaga's known recruiting targets in the 2026 class. Some updates on a few of those players taking visits to other schools and having strong performances on the EYBL circuit. We'll get you all that information up to date in the second segment, but we're starting the show with yet another known target for Mark Few and the Gonzaga Bulldogs in the 2026 recruiting class. It had been pretty quiet for Gonzaga in the 2026 class. We'd heard about Sam Funches a while ago. His visit to campus in February was postponed. It sounds like that's going to be rescheduled. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but there hadn't been a lot of movement. And then very suddenly Gonzaga was involved with Tyran Stokes, the number one player in the class, with Toni Bryant, one of the top power forwards in the class, already, of course, connected to Sam Funches, one of the top centers in the class. So I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that now we know Gonzaga is connected to one of the top guards in the recruiting class. That would be Ikenna Alozie, who is going to take a visit to Gonzaga, according to reporting from On3 and then confirmed by Theo Lawson of the Spokesman Review. He is set to take a visit to Gonzaga sometime in June was the reporting, but that the official date has not been set. I also said an official visit. I guess I can't confirm whether it's going to be an official visit or not, but I think that is the plan. My expectation, or at least my guess, is that Gonzaga is hoping to try to get Alozie on campus at the same time as Sam Funches, who I know they were trying to get on campus for Hoop Fest. As an aside, Gonzaga typically, if they're not going to get players on campus during the season, the two weekends they really try to get people on campus are Hoop Fest and then Craziness in the Kennel, which is, of course, in October. Those are the two weekends they're looking at with Funches. So I wouldn't be surprised if those are the weekends they're looking at with Alozie as well. And certainly if they could get them both on campus at the same time, sometimes that can drum up interest of like, hey, maybe we would play really well together. Maybe this could work. Maybe we should both go here type of situation. I don't know if these two guys know each other. Funches plays in Mississippi, so I suspect maybe in passing, but I don't know that they are super close, especially since Alozie is from Hillside, New Jersey. He's a 6'2" combo guard. He's the 10th ranked recruit in the 2026 class. That's according to 247 Sports' composite rankings. He's 19th in the actual class according to 247 Sports, but he is 9th at On3. The other recruiting services tend to value him a little bit higher than that as well. He's from New Jersey, but he's currently playing at Dream City Christian in Glendale, Arizona, one of the many kind of high school basketball factories in that area, Compass Prep, where the Zags just landed Davis Fogel. He played there, also in Arizona, so it's not uncommon. Prolific Prep is another place in LA that has had some players that Gonzaga has pursued in the past as well. Now, Gonzaga is a little bit late to the party on Ikenna Alozie, so we'll see how that hurts or how that impacts them in the recruiting. It's usually not a good thing to be late, but sometimes you can kind of swoop in and swing a player at the last minute. We've seen that before. Typically when that happens, Gonzaga is competing against not the programs that they're competing against this time. Let's put it that way. Alozie has already taken visits, I believe, of the unofficial variety to both Arizona and UW, but he did report when talking with On3 that he is planning to not only visit Gonzaga, but also Kentucky, Louisville, Houston, and Kansas. And outside of maybe Duke, there's not a lot of programs that you want to be going up against in the recruiting trail less than Kentucky, Louisville, Houston, and Kansas, especially with the way Houston has recruited lately. Maybe you throw Arkansas on that list, but gosh, that is that's a pretty rough road to try to land a player out of that specific group. Now, there's plenty of other offers out there for Alozie, including BYU, Cincy, Creighton, Georgetown, Michigan, Oregon, Providence, St. John's, Tennessee, UCLA, Villanova, West Virginia, Seton Hall, etc., etc. Tons of programs have made offers to Alozie. Again, he is one of, if not the best guard in the 2026 recruiting class. On3 ranks him number 1 among point guards. 247 Sports lists him more as a combo guard. So I think that there's a little bit of discrepancy of what kind of role he might fill at the next level. I do think that could work toward Gonzaga's advantage. I will read a quote here from Alozie regarding his recruitment from Gonzaga. He told this to On3. He said, quote, "I still don't know much yet because they started recruiting me late. So it's a new program and new recruitment process." So we don't have a ton of information, but the fact that it's a fairly new recruitment process and he's interested in visiting is at least a promising sign that he's not just dismissing them outright or so locked in on the other programs that are pursuing him that he's not even considering, a newer program that's getting in on the recruiting. So you got to think that that's at least a decent thing for Gonzaga. And if they are able to get him on campus, you always feel good about that. Certainly it's going to be tough if he also goes to Kentucky, Louisville, Houston, and Kansas. To win a recruiting battle against those schools is never easy, but you feel better about Gonzaga's chances if they at least are able to get him to Spokane. A little bit more about Alozie as a basketball player. This scouting report, I watched some tape. I also read this great scouting report from Adam Finkelstein, who's the director of recruiting and scouting for 247 Sports. I'm not just going to read it directly, but I'll paraphrase some of the stuff that he said about Alozie's game. He's very, very fast. He's got a ton of speed and power, kind of a nice combination of those two things. He's a super elite athlete, and he gets downhill, according to Finkelstein, better than everybody in high school, basically. His ability to get to the rim, to use his strength and his power and his speed to finish around the rim, to get through contact, is some of the most elite in all of high school basketball. So he's probably Caleb Battle-esque in that way. Now, he's not built quite like Caleb Battle. Battle's 6'5" and looked like a linebacker. Alozie's 6'2". He does have a 6'6" wingspan, which will help him a ton, and he will very likely fill out. It's not really fair to compare body types for Alozie, who is currently a high school junior entering his senior year, versus Battle, who was a sixth-year senior when he was at Gonzaga. But certainly he's already a player, Alozie is, who's got that strength and power and speed kind of combination that you really like out of a high-level guard. He's considered an explosive finisher, but he also has really nice touch and body control. That's a really tough thing to teach. It's sort of innate for some guys, just the ability to fly towards the basket and then slow your body down and have nice touch around the rim without just clanging it hard off the backboard. And also just the body control to get a little wiggly, to finish through contact, to know how to get to your spots, to get, a shot up at the rim that's got a chance of going down. Like, those are skills that are tough to teach, and certainly things he could improve upon. But the fact that there's already a solid foundation of those particular skills makes the likelihood that his ability to finish at the rim and get to the rim and get to the free throw line is probably already very strong. And again, likely will continue to get better as he gets more physically mature and also just, processes the game better and all the things that come with, making the transition from the high school level to the collegiate level. He's a bit inconsistent as a shooter at this point. I think if you look at skills that are likely to improve at the college basketball space, I would take shooting as one that's like, okay, we can make you a better shooter. It's hard to make you stronger or like significantly stronger. Obviously, you will get stronger, but if you are not somebody who's good at finishing around the rim or driving through contact, getting better at that is a little bit more challenging, whereas three-point shooting is a little bit easier to improve over time at the collegiate level. He's also, the decision-making is a bit of a mystery box at this point, but again, he's a high school junior. I don't know any high school juniors in any field that are very good decision makers. It's just part of the deal. So that's something that will improve with time as well. But I do think that kind of begs the question about what role he might play at Gonzaga, because you're talking about a 6'2" guard who, again, On3 labels as a point guard, 247 labels as a combo guard. He certainly handled the ball in high school for the most part because he's been the best player on his team, but what does that look like at the next level? Because if Gonzaga is viewing him as more of an off-ball guard, kind of that Caliph battle role where your role is primarily to attack the basket, to hit open threes, not necessarily to be, handling the ball in the pick and roll and getting into the offense. If he's kind of asked to be in a different role, that could really, really help him thrive and open up and kind of become a specialist who's really, really good at that. He may want to be in a situation where he's more likely to be on the ball. But again, I think Gonzaga's love of those two guard lineups where they have a point guard and another guard who is capable of running the point. Again, the Jalen Suggs, Andrew Nembhard backcourt, the Nigel Williams-Goss, Josh Perkins backcourt, the even Ryan Nembhard, Nolan Hickman backcourt was that to an extent as well. And so for Gonzaga, if they're able to sell Alozie on, hey, come here and you can play off the ball and you can wreak havoc downhill, you can get out in transition where he's exceptionally elite. And I think very few teams outside of maybe Arizona can promise as many opportunities in transition as Gonzaga can on this list. So you're going to get out in transition. You're going to score easy buckets that way. We'll get you open looks from three because the defense is going to collapse in on our bigs, but also you'll get opportunities to engage the offense, to run the point, to navigate out of the pick and roll. Like that's a pretty solid sell. And if Gonzaga can get him on campus and kind of pair him with Sam Funches, who's a good rim running big, and say, hey, look at what this could be in Spokane. Look at how great you two could be together. Like there's an absolute situation or reality where this happens. Right now, we know Gonzaga is pursuing basically the top ranked player at nearly every position in the 2026 class. Are they going to land all of them? Probably not. Are they going to land any of them? I don't know. I'd like to think they get at least one, maybe two of these guys. It certainly would be disappointing if they were not able to pull any of them. I like that they're at least in the market for some of the top players in the 2026 recruiting class. That's always good, even if we're feeling a little bit of heartbreak from the Isaiah Harwell, Nick Kamenia, Kingston Fleming's misses from the 2025 class. It's still nice to see Gonzaga be out and about pretty heavily in this 2026 class. And that's kind of what I want to talk about moving on here is some updates on the other players the Zags are pursuing, whether it's Funches or Stokes or Toni Bryant. All of those guys, we got some new updates on them, a new update on a 2025 target who has made an official commitment, all that and more coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, the NBA playoffs full swing right now. Nembhard and the Pacers are going to be in action in just a couple hours as I'm recording this live on Tuesday afternoon. Every night has delivered highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot, a breakout player, Chet Holmgren blocking Jaden McDaniels at the rim. There has never been a time than right now to get in on all the action, and FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game both before tip-off and during the contest. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you're feeling good about the Zags roster right now, heading into 2026, they're at plus 4,000, according to FanDuel, to win the 2026 National Championship. Check it out. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, folks, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast, and we're still talking 2026 recruiting for Mark Few and the Gonzaga Bulldogs. We introduced you all to Ikenna Alozie in the first segment, a top-ranked guard in the 2026 class who is reportedly planning to visit Gonzaga sometime in the month of June. We don't have any finalized dates on that, but hopeful that perhaps he will visit at the same time as Sam Funches, who is also looking to visit in June. I want to make it clear that that is not confirmed that Funches will be here in June for Hoop Fest weekend, but it is plausible that that will happen and that perhaps Alozie will be there at the same time. But I want to talk about the other recruiting targets because, as I mentioned in that first segment, Gonzaga is now pursuing the number one ranked point guard in the 2026 class in Ikenna Alozie, from who we just talked about on 3 has him number one. And then Tyran Stokes is the number one ranked small forward and, in fact, the number one ranked overall player in the 2026 class. Gonzaga has been pursuing him. They're reportedly going to have him on campus as well. Power forward Toni Bryant is the number 2 ranked power forward, according to On 3. And then Sam Funches is the number 3 ranked center in the 2026 class, again, per On 3. So Gonzaga has made contact with and has set up visits with, or at least some some combination of that with the number 1, number 2, and number 3 ranked players at the point guard, small forward, power forward, and center positions. Casting a wide net for Mark Few and the Zags. They are looking for anybody and everybody who can come in and contribute right away in that 2026 recruiting class. The Zags have also contacted Dean Ruckert, who is a small forward from Provo, Utah, in the 2026 class. He's now a little bit lower down in terms of positional rankings. He's the 18th ranked small forward in the class, according to both On3 and 247 Sports. Now, he's still a borderline top 50 prospect. I think On3 has him 45th in the class, or excuse me, 24/7 Sports has him 45th in the recruiting class. On3 has him 56. So he's still a very good prospect. Sounds like he's kind of leaning in other directions, but the Zags have been pretty heavily involved with some of the best of the very best in the 2026 class. And it's all happened, with the exception of Funches, it's all happened pretty recently. We know Gonzaga's interest in Sam Funches kind of goes back to about a year ago at this time when Gonzaga was first contacting him again. They had him scheduled to visit in February for, I believe, a game against LMU or Pepperdine. I can't remember who. It was over Valentine's Day weekend. Funches ended up canceling that visit. At the time, there was a lot of speculation of, Gonzaga's swinging a miss and missing out on another one here. It was reported by me via Sam Funches that that visit was canceled because his team was still in the state playoffs. That's why he was not able to come to campus in February. And he told me that he is looking to come either for Hoop Fest weekend, which is again the last weekend in June, or Craziness in the Kennel, which is probably the first weekend in October. I suspect it'll be October 4th. It has not been officially confirmed by the university. But Sam Funches is the only actual player in the 2026 class that Gonzaga has made an offer to, that it's been reported, I should say. It's possible that Gonzaga has made offers to Stokes and Bryant and those guys, and it just has not been reported on the major recruiting services. But for right now, we do know that Sam Funches has an offer from Gonzaga. Again, a 7-foot center. He's been pursued by Kansas. Ole Miss has kind of been long considered the front runner because he's from Mississippi. Mississippi State is also in the mix. So is Cal. But certainly Gonzaga is heavily involved in the recruitment of Sam Funches. Also want to mention Tyran Stokes, the number 1 ranked player in the 2026 class. He's the best high school player in the country. And that was proven in an EYBL matchup over the weekend. His team was playing against the 2027 top prospect. So it's kind of a battle of the 2 best high schoolers in their respective classes. And Stokes just dominated. I mean, just absolutely dominated in this game for the Knight Riders. 30 points, 18 boards, 5 assists, and 4 steals. The reporting basically says not only is he the clear-cut best high school player in the country, the gap is widening. He is the best player right now, and it's not particularly close. Again, I think that's future classes, not counting like AJ Dibansa, who's about to start at BYU this year, or Darren Peterson at Kansas. Those guys are probably better, but they're done with their high school careers. So right now it is Tyron Stokes. He's 6'7". He's 245 pounds as a high schooler, which is just obscenely big. He's a monster of a man, and he plays like it. He's tough. He's physical. The comparison that I saw was that he looked like Larry Johnson out there, grandmama from the 90s, just using his physicality, his athleticism to flat out dominate opponents. He barely looked like he was kind of going through the motions in the first half, and this team got down, and then he just took over in the second half. This dude is really, really good. Now, everybody's involved. Everybody's involved in Tyron Stokes. The favorites right now is this specific list: Arkansas, Kansas, Louisville, and Kentucky. That's a pretty darn good list of programs right there. 2 consensus blue bloods in Kentucky and Kansas, a Louisville program that's recruiting really well right now under Pat Kelsey, and of course John Calipari. And Arkansas. Oregon is also in the mix. Gonzaga is also in the mix. Again, they are expecting to have him on campus, although dates for that have not been set. But my goodness, would Tyron Stokes be a massive, massive addition for Mark Few and the Zags. Toni Bryant is the power forward, number 2 ranked power forward in the class, a top 10, top 20 prospect, depending on the recruiting service you're looking at, 6'9" big. He officially said an official visit to North Carolina, the Tar Heels, on September 1st. In fact, he's also drawing interest from, again, pretty great list of programs: Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, Mizzou, the Zags on the list, as well as a handful of others. 10th nationally, according to 247 Sports, 6'9" stretch forward. Be a really nice fit in terms of what Gonzaga likes their power forwards to do in the offense. But again, lots of competition. Him setting an official visit to North Carolina doesn't necessarily mean like that Gonzaga's out or anything like that, but certainly we'll keep an eye to see if Gonzaga is able. He's one of the only guys on this list that hasn't even talked necessarily about a visit. We know Gonzaga's contacted him, but we haven't really heard if there's a visit planned or not. So that'll be one to keep an eye on as we know he's now at least starting the process of scheduling some of those visits. So that's kind of the update on the 2026 guys. I'll give you quickly an update on some 2025 targets. Obviously, Gonzaga already has Davis Fogel and Parker Jefferson joining the program next year in that class of 2025. We also know that they are working on Mario Saint-Superi, a Spanish guard, so another European addition. I said last week that this is all but finalized. It has not been officially finalized as I'm recording this right now. The hope is that it'll be finalized in the very near future, potentially as soon as this week. It's been in the works for a long time. Very talented player who played for Baxi Manresa and Liga ACB in Spain last year. Numbers weren't great, but he was one of the youngest players in the league, and he still averaged 6.5 points and 4 assists per game in a fairly limited role is still excellent. He was also with the Euro FIBA U18 team, where he averaged 21.5 points, 6.5 assists, and 5.5 boards. He's an excellent player. He would probably be Gonzaga's backup point guard if he were to commit. If this does get finalized, I think he'll be backing up Braden Smith at the 1 this upcoming season, with the opportunity to develop into a much bigger player potentially in year 2, as Adam Miller will be out the door and potentially Jalen Warley will be out the door as well. So there'll be some room for him to fill a bigger role after this upcoming season. And then Gonzaga was briefly in contact with a 2025 4-star power forward named Alek Alston. Just reporting that Alek Alston committed to Maryland over the weekend. Was kind of one of the best non-committed 2025 prospects. Still 6'9" big man, nicknamed the Serbian Sniper. Was very much a stretch 4 type that I think Gonzaga could have heavily utilized. My guess, maybe the Zags were still involved here, but my kind of guess here is that the Zags prioritized Parker Jefferson over Alek Alston, either because they liked him better or because they didn't think Alston was going to come to Gonzaga, so they just pivoted and went in a different direction. But this is a nice get for Buzz Williams and the Terps. I did a lot of research on Alek Alston when Gonzaga was interested in him. He's a really good player, and I think he's going to be a nice addition for this Maryland team. But another target that if you were still had him on your radar as a Gonzaga recruit they could bring in for this year, that is no longer an option, as he is going to the Big Ten to go play for Maryland. Well, folks, Chet Holmgren had an elite 4th quarter to help Oklahoma City take a commanding 3-1 lead over Minnesota in the Western Conference Finals. We got that and more on the NBA playoffs coming up here in just a second. All right, folks, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast. And we're closing out the show. Instead of continuing our conversation about Gonzaga's recruiting updates at the current moment, including the update on their newest target, which would be 2026 guard Ikenna Alozie. We talked about him. We talked about their other 2026 targets and what's going on in 2025, including the 2 newcomers we know about in Davis Fogel and Parker Jefferson, the newcomer we're expecting in Mario Saint-Superi, and a few other targets as well. Now we're going to talk about some former Zags. Not future Zags, former Zags. We're talking about 2 in particular, Chet Holmgren and Andrew Nembhard, who are both knocking on the door of competing against each other in the NBA Finals, which would be an extraordinarily fun thing for Gonzaga fans to get to watch. Oklahoma City versus Indiana is also a very unique potential NBA Finals matchup. OKC is the number 1 seed in the West, so it's not like it's a shock that they may be in the NBA Finals. Indiana, however, is the 4 seed. That's a bit more rare. That's not something you see every day. They just dispatched the number 1 seed Cleveland quite easily. And the 3 seed New York Knicks were able to get past the 2 seeded Boston Celtics after a unfortunate injury to superstar Jason Tatum, which is why we're potentially set up with this matchup between OKC and Indiana. And again, it's not finalized yet. I'll tell you right now, Oklahoma City up 3-1 in their series against the 6-seeded Minnesota Timberwolves. They won game 4, 128-126, a nail biter. Game 5 is set for Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. That could be when the Thunder officially clinch a spot in the NBA Finals. Again, 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday. That game will be on ESPN. And the reason the Thunder are up 3-1 is because Chet Holmgren went crazy in the final quarter against Minnesota in game 4. He finished the game with 21 points. He had 7 boards, 3 blocks, an assist, and a steal. Very Chet Holmgren type line there. Excellent block numbers, great rebounding numbers. Also very efficient 9 of 14 shooting. He was 2 of 4 from 3, 7 of 10 on his 2-point attempts. Again, he's being primarily guarded by one of the most elite big man defenders in all of the country and all the world in Rudy Gobert. So for him to have that level of performance is always excellent. He also had 9 of his 21 points in the fourth quarter. That included a ridiculous spin move dunk that just absolutely brought the house down. He also had a block on Jaden McDaniels in the final minute of this game, a game-sealing block. What more could you possibly want from the big fellow than dunking on people, scoring on elite defenders, coming up clutch in the fourth quarter and blocking shots in the final minute? That is the Chet Holmgren that we know, that we love, that we want to see in the NBA Finals. I say this every show. I will say it again. I know many of you are not Oklahoma City Thunder fans. I'm a Portland Trailblazers fan, born and raised. I have a soft spot for the Sonics. I am devastated by what happened to them. I fully support people who do not want to root for Oklahoma City. But root for Chet, man. He's awesome. It's real fun to watch what he's doing. Also, you may not want to root for a Santa Clara guy because that may not mean as much to you, but Jalen Williams from Santa Clara, he hung 34 on Minnesota in that Game 4 win as well. It's kind of cool to see two guys from the WCC dominating for this Oklahoma City team as they are now one win away from being back in the NBA Finals. Looking on the other side, the Indiana Pacers are up 2-1 in their series. They won the first 2 games against the New York Knicks, which included Andrew Nembhard scoring 7 points in the overtime period of Game 2, including some elite defense on Jalen Brunson to get the Pacers that win. However, Indiana lost Game 3, 106-100, so it is now just a 2-1 lead in that series for the Pacers. Nembhard was not great in Game 3, 9 points, 4 boards, 3 assists, and a steal. He's just 2 of 9 from the field. That included missing all 3 of his 3-point attempts and going just 2 of 6 on 2-point attempts. He did go 5 of 6 from the charity stripe, but just not his best game, and kind of an evidence of how critical Andrew Nembhard is to this Indiana team. Like, he hadn't had a lot of bad games in the playoffs. You know, this was an uncharacteristically off night. I think it's fair to say 9 points on 2 of 9 shooting for who Nembhard has been in the playoffs. That's not a great game. Now, 9 points and 3 assists is not really that far off from his regular season averages, which I think tells you how important he's been to this team, that registers as a bad game for him in the playoffs because he's been consistently in double figures. He's been consistently more in that 15, 18, 20-point range. He's been also just coming up hyper clutch for this team, hitting big shots. He's got a real attitude to him. You can see him getting in some altercations, getting in people's faces. He's just got a little bit of a mean streak to him, and he's got a little bit of a tude, and it's really working for him and this Indiana team. It was a bummer to see them lose Game 3. They're going to play again very soon. As I'm recording this right now, it is 3:40 Pacific time on Tuesday. The Pacers and the Knicks will play in an hour and 20 minutes at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So as many of you are listening to this game is probably already over. We will talk about it later this week, of course, as we keep you up to date on what's going on with these guys in the NBA playoffs. But I'll tell you this right now. If Andrew Nembhard doesn't find himself, if he doesn't find a way to get back to being that nasty, dominant off guard that the Pacers really need him to be alongside Tyrese Halliburton, it wouldn't shock me if the Knicks are able to make a comeback here in this series. But if Nembhard's back to being that guy, he's a real X factor for this team. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased because of the Gonzaga connection here, but I think a lot of other people who follow this league would tell you that Andrew Nembhard is a really, really critical part of this Indiana Pacers team. And as he goes, they may go in terms of getting back to the NBA Finals and taking down this New York Knicks club and potentially squaring off against his old teammate, Chet Holmgren, for Oklahoma City. I'd be remiss if I did not mention this. Obviously, I am rooting for Nembhard and the Pacers, but if it is the Knicks who advance, it does still open up an opportunity for a Zag to get a ring, as Anton Watson did play for the New York Knicks this year on a 2-way contract after he was waived by the Boston Celtics. The Knicks have the option, basically, to award 2-way contract players a ring or not. I think that they probably would give Watson a ring because he finished the season with the team. He was on their roster right up until the last day of the regular season. Typically, that ends up getting you a ring, but we will see. Certainly, if you want to be definitive, I know that this NBA Finals will end with a Gonzaga player getting a ring. You're rooting for Oklahoma City versus Indiana because that sets it up. No doubt, unquestionably, you're getting at least one ring. You're getting one ring for an NBA player coming out of Gonzaga for the first time since 2014, by the way. It's been over a decade since Austin Daye. Not a lot of people would have guessed that. I think we'd have guessed some Adam Morrison, maybe guessed somebody else, but Austin Daye with the 2013-14 San Antonio Spurs is the last former Gonzaga player to win a ring as a player in the NBA Finals. So certainly that streak looks very likely to come to an end, barring Minnesota making a comeback on Oklahoma City or New York not awarding a ring to Anton Watson. Either way, I think we're feeling pretty good about the Zags' chances of at least taking home one ring out of this NBA Finals. We'll have more on the NBA Finals, more on Gonzaga's recruiting targets, more on their transfer portal targets coming up later this week. We'll talk more about Ryan Nembhard and his quest to be selected in the 2025 NBA Draft, which is about a month from today. All that and more coming up. But we are going to wrap it up for today here on the Locked On Zags podcast. Folks, thank you so much to those of you who have made this show your first listen or your first watch of the day. Again, a special shout out to those everyday listeners and those of you hanging out in the Locked On Zags Discord community. We appreciate all of you there. Thanks again, folks, for listening. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. So check us out there. And until then, as always, go Zags.